Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, okay. Rick Steve's Europe video, Cotswolds, and then Churches of England. They're both pretty short, but I really love these videos. It's such a great channel, Rick Steve's Europe. So let's get started. The original links to the video, top of the description. Below that, link to the Discord. Would love to have you. Let's get started.
Lower Slaughter is a classic example of a Cotswold village, with a babbling brook, charming gardens, and a working watermill. Just above the mill, a delightful cafe overlooks the mill pond. As with many fairy tale regions in Europe, the present-day beauty of the Cotswolds was the result of an economic disaster. Wool was a huge industry in medieval England, and Cotswold sheep grew the very best. According to a 12th century saying, in Europe, the best wool is English, and in England, the best wool is Cotswold. It's a story of boom and bust, and then boom again.
Oh, it's heaven.
Because of its wool, the region prospered. Wealthy wool merchants built fine homes of the honey-colored local limestone. Thankful to God for the riches their sheep brought, they built oversized churches nicknamed wool cathedrals. But with the rise of cotton and the Industrial Revolution, the region's wool industry collapsed. The fine Cotswold towns fell into a depressed time warp, becoming sleeping beauties. Because of that, the region had
Some images in these videos I watch just give me a special feeling.
wool industry warp, becoming
I can just imagine kind of sitting there and hard to explain. You guys are so lucky in so many ways.
sleeping beauties. Because of that, the region has a rustic charm.
Guys, I'm not saying that we don't have beautiful places like in New England. I think there are a lot of amazingly gorgeous places here and a lot of other places around the country, but something we lack a dimension, the time dimension that you guys have. You know, like everything is so awesome and it's also just so I don't know. I just
beauties. Because of that, the region has a rustic charm. And that's the basis of today's new prosperity. Its residents are catering to lots of tourists, and the Cotswolds have become a popular escape for Londoners, people who can afford thatched mansions like these. In England, Main Street is called the High Street, and in Cotswold market towns, High Street was built wide, designed to handle thousands of sheep on market days. The handsome market town of Chipping Campden has a high street that's changed little over the centuries. Everything you see was made of the same finely worked Cotswold stone, the only stone allowed today. Roofs still use the traditional stone shingles. To make the weight easier to bear, smaller and lighter slabs are higher up.
So obviously this is stuff I've seen the full Cotswolds video, right? And a lot of this is just kind of snippets of that, but it's still awesome to watch. And I haven't seen the church one, so.
A 17th century market hall with its original stonework from top to bottom intact marks the town center. Hikers admire the surviving medieval workmanship. You can imagine centuries of wheelings and dealings that took place under these very rafters. Continuing our walk, we come to the quaint village of Stanton. Travel writers tend to overuse the word quaint. I save it for here in the Cotswolds.
What does quaint exactly mean? Just like attractively unusual or old-fashioned? Okay. Oh no. Come on. Yes. I have way too many tabs.
A strict building code keeps towns looking what many locals call overly quaint. Village churches welcome walkers to pop in and enjoy a thoughtful break. This church probably sits upon an ancient pagan site. How do we know? It's dedicated to Saint Michael, and Michael, the archangel who fought the devil, still guards the door. Inside, you get a sense that this church has comforted this community in good times and bad. Pre-Christian symbols decorate the columns, perhaps left over from those pagan days. And the list of rectors goes way back, without a break, to the year 1269.
Rectors.
This church was built with wool money. In fact, they say generations of sheepdog leashes actually wore these grooves. I guess a shepherd took his dog everywhere, even to church.
All right, let's do this one. Okay, Churches of England. Let's go.
Churches welcome walkers to pop in and enjoy a thoughtful
Hi, I'm
break.
Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe.
God, sorry.
This time, we're...
This church probably sits upon an ancient pagan site. How do we know? It's dedicated to Saint Michael. And Michael, the archangel
Hey,
who fought the...
it's continuing from where we left off. Well, we saw
For
this
nearly
part.
1,000 years, pilgrims have set their sights on this, the Durham Cathedral, standing like a mighty fortress. Built around the year 1100 to house the much venerated bones of the great missionary monk.
Guys, and nice grass. It could use a little water. Sorry if you explain this. It would be so cool. I say this with ships. Like, I would love to go to the right before the steam engine was used and before metal was incorporated into ships and ship hulls. I would love to see just the combined the knowledge and expertise when it came to making ships after centuries and centuries of perfecting it, and then seeing how they worked, and maybe even more so something like this, where how did you just do it with a series of pulleys, and you carved stuff on the ground and then just hoisted it up and then just next. I guess that's possible. Of course it is. They did it.
St. Cuthbert. It offers perhaps England's best and purest look at Norman architecture. The architecture is unusually harmonious because the church was completed in just 40 years and survives essentially unaltered. Round arches and zigzag decorations are textbook Norman style. Stroll down the nave to the center. Gaze up at one of the highest bell towers in Europe.
When the Normans conquered the Saxons here in England back in the 11th century, they brought with them more than just their architecture. They brought a whole new order. And this mighty church, way up here in the north, was more than a place of worship and a home for St. Cuthbert's bones. It was an unambiguous political statement, both
What year did you say?
Bell tower.
back in the 11th century.
Okay, yeah. Okay, 1066, right. All right.
This mighty church, way up here in the north, was more than a place of worship and a home for St. Cuthbert's bones. It was an unambiguous political statement, both to the conquered Saxons and to the Scots further north. The Normans were here to stay.
Grand medieval churches and the art that fills them are a reminder that monks like Cuthbert were the intellectual candles who helped keep scholarship flickering through the Dark Ages. Later, that knowledge strengthened the church and made wonders like the Durham Cathedral possible. England's first completely Gothic church dates from about 1200. The west portal shows off what's said to be the greatest collection of medieval statuary anywhere in Europe. About 300 13th century carvings.
Okay, so they had to have done this on the ground, right? There's no way they went... Yeah, all right. So did they just cement it to this pedestal?
This entire ensemble was once painted in vivid color. It must have been a spectacular welcome. A heavenly host proclaiming, "Welcome to worship." Stepping inside, you're struck by the unique and ingenious scissors arch.
Man.
This hourglass-shaped double arch was added in about 1340 to bolster the church's sagging tower. Nearly 700 years later, it's not only still working, it's beautiful.
That's pretty awesome. So it all just puts the force onto this point, which then directs the force down there. I was never good with...
The chimes draw your attention to one of the
That organ.
oldest working clocks in the world from 1392. the clock does its much-loved joust on the quarter hour.
That's great.
More medieval whimsy is carved into the capitals. This man has a toothache. Another pulls a thorn from his foot. And a farmer clobbers a thief so hard his hat falls off.
Oh, I thought he was going to be more gruesome.
And under glorious stained glass, you can enjoy the cathedral's evensong. The evensong is a Church of England choral service traditionally performed each evening and welcoming everyone. Taking a seat in the intimate central part of the church, we enjoy the opportunity to experience the church filled with timeless music.
I was never a religious person. My parents just kind of wanted us to, decide as we were older. But a lot of this stuff is, what was I going to say? I remember, and so a lot of this stuff is like gibberish to me. Some of this, like during the King's coronation, King Charles III, some stuff was being said and they'd repeat it. I would just be there like, I don't know what like chants they're saying. I know you say amen sometimes, but sometimes you don't, but somehow they know when to say it. Like, how do you know when to say amen? Amen. And I remember at my uncle's funeral, rest in peace, Kevin. We were at the church service part of the funeral, which is before you go to the cemetery, and it was he's going around, and I remember my dad knew like, oh God, you're not gonna know what to do, and they have like a cracker or something, and I wasn't sure if you're supposed to. But I'm like waiting. I thought he like puts it in your mouth, and so I'm like, and you could tell the priest, and he's like in the middle of the whole thing. It was kind of embarrassing. And then I looked over to my dad, and he was just cracking up. But oh God, I looked like such an idiot. But I didn't know. Apparently, you have to grab it and then eat it. And great day. Rest in peace, Kevin.
Because we're here in July, the cathedral's choir is on break and a visiting choir is performing. This one's from near Liverpool.
I went to church once for like a theology class in college, and we had at St. John's University, they had a church on campus, and I went there, and everyone was really nice, like it was interesting, and it gives you a kind of fuzzy feeling, and everyone's just like, hi, how are you? Hey.
The Minster
like, oh,
is the pride of York.
All right, sorry.
Britain's largest Gothic
Nice
church
grass.
brilliantly shows that the late Middle Ages were far from dark. The York Minster is filled with history and tradition. Its grand bells have called people to worship here for well over 1,000 years. Each day at...
Question. I thought the Dark Ages was the period between the collapse of Western Roman Empire and like, the 1000 or something. 1000 AD. But maybe I'm wrong.
Noon, the huge bell nicknamed Great Peter is rung from the church tower. At 10 tons, the bell can actually ring its ringer. Inside, your first impression might be the spaciousness and brightness. The nave, from about 1300, is one of the... Inside, your first impression might be the spaciousness and brightness. The nave, from about 1300, is one of the widest Gothic naves in Europe. On festival Sundays, 4,000 worshippers pack the place. The central tower soars nearly 200 feet. The neck-saving mirror allows you to marvel at it
200 feet.
comfortably.
That's insanely high. That's, even if there was water below you and you fell from that might be deadly still.
The church has more original medieval glass than the rest of England's churches combined.
I don't know why I'm surprised. I gotta stop talking. No more coffee, for Christ's sakes.
The church has more original medieval glass than the rest of England's churches combined. The east window is the size of a tennis court. The great west window has exceptional stone tracery. With
Oh,
its
that's
nickname,
beautiful.
the Heart of York, it represents the Sacred Heart of Christ and reminds worshippers of his love for the world. The intricacy of the painted and stained glass held together by lead is exquisite. The fine details, far too tiny to see from the floor, are said to be for God's eyes only. The choir screen separates the nave from the choir. This ornate wall of carvings is lined with 4 centuries of English kings, from William the Conqueror to Henry VI. While most of the faces are generic kings with the same scraggly beards, Henry,
And
during
hair.
whose reign it was carved in 1461, is both genteel and engaged.
Genteel. What does genteel mean again? Not Jewish? Gentile? Why do I feel like that was wrong? Or I'm not...
York's Minster is considered England's number 2 Anglican church, after Canterbury. The Anglican Church came into existence about 500 years ago, born out of Europe's long power struggle between popes and kings. Westminster Abbey. This most historic church in the English-speaking world is where kings and queens have been crowned and buried since 1066. While it was first built in the 11th century, much of what we see today is 14th century. When there's a royal wedding, the world looks on as, amid all this splendor, thousands of Britain's glitterati gather under these graceful Gothic arches. The centerpiece is the tomb of Edward the Confessor, who founded the abbey, and surrounding Edward are the tombs of 29 other kings and queens. This is the tomb of Queen Elizabeth I. Her royal orb symbolizes she was queen of the entire globe. The abbey is filled with the remains of people who put the great in Britain: saints, musicians, scientists, and soldiers. For lovers of English literature,
Is Admiral Nelson and what's his name? Napoleonic Wars also. Iberian campaign. Wellesley. Are they there?
strolling through Poets' Corner can be a pilgrimage in itself. King Henry VII's Lady Chapel, with its colorful windows and fanciful banners, has the festive air of a medieval pageant. The elaborate ceiling is a fine example of fan vaulting, a style that capped the Gothic age. At the far end, a wall of modern stained glass marks the Royal Air Force Chapel. It honors the fighter pilots of all nations who died defending Britain in 1944. With saints in stained glass, heroes in carved stone, and the remains of England's greatest citizens under the floorstones, Westminster Abbey is the national church and the religious heart of England.
That was amazing. Sorry, guys. My ADD and coffee combined into a perfect storm towards the end of that video, and I paused a lot, but part of the package here. Hope you guys are all doing well. If not, chin up. You'll be good soon. Emotions are fickle, guys. I really mean that, okay? I don't just say that. Mental health is no joke. I hope you're doing well, and you'll be good soon, if not, all right? I'm about to drink. Very good indeed.
Lower slide.
Again, just the infusion of history and architecture that just isn't. We have beautiful places over here, okay? Especially in New England. I'm biased, obviously. But I hope you guys don't take for granted how special England is, and, you know, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. Ireland, honestly, as a country as well. A lot of countries in Europe, how you guys have such infused history, and probably more so Britain than other countries in Europe, because you suffered a lot less destruction in the world wars and just in other wars in general. And so it's a really special place, this country. I didn't like it. Again, hope you guys are doing well. See you next time. Till next time. Bye, guys.